But now let's go to the Roundhouse in Santa Fe. Our correspondent Gwyneth Dolan checked in on the latest budget news earlier this week for the People, Power, and Democracy Project.
Senator Candelaria, we are here talking on Wednesday morning at the Capitol, and everyone in this building is waiting for the same document that is called a consensus revenue estimate. What is in this document that everybody's waiting for?
The consensus revenue estimate is sort of the best guess that both executive and legislative economists have on how much money the state of New Mexico is going to have to spend in the coming months and in the coming year. We develop it by looking both at the tax revenue that's coming into the state, the money coming into our checking account, as well as sort of how much we think is going to be coming into the checking account, looking at tax receipts, but also at sort of big picture economic indicators like the price of oil.
So once you get that guesstimate of how much money is coming in, the next step is to essentially take a template of last year's budget and try to make it match the numbers?
Yes, so basically once we know how much money is coming in, how much money is available, the legislature looks at prior year budgets and decides if we're going to have to cut or if we can make strategic investments in new programs or if we can increase funding in different areas of government.
Now, you mentioned the state's checking account earlier, and I'm guessing that the state's checking account does not look like my checking account. It must be much more complicated than that.
Our budget process is incredibly complicated, and thankfully we have some amazing legislative leaders who are taking the lead and addressing some pretty daunting challenges in what is a multi-layered, complex, multiple sources of revenues, hundreds of different government programs. You've got to try and find a way to balance managing all of that complexity.
So if you do want to bring in more money, how do you think we should do that?
I think that we need to find some common ground on raising revenues, on increasing taxes on out-of-state corporations, on doing common sense reforms to the way that we collect Medicaid taxes. Things that we can do that won't hurt our economy and that won't raise taxes on hardworking people, but that will get the state out of this crisis that we're in. It's time to put political agenda aside, ideology aside, and do what's best for the state.
Senator Candelaria just told us that with the amount of money it looks like the state is going to have coming in, they're going to have to either find more money or take a machete to spending. Which is it going to be?
Well, I would hope neither. I would hope that we could find a third way, which is to raise the revenue that we need to balance the budget. We're constitutionally mandated to meet the needs of the state. And if we don't have enough revenue right now, we should raise the revenue that we need.
And how do we do that?
Well, I think you have to raise some taxes. I know that sounds like a dirty word and nobody likes that, but there are a lot of places where we could either increase taxes or close loopholes or cut out some of these dozens and dozens of tax breaks that aren't working for us.
Well, you mentioned tax breaks. I have this report right here, 262 pages that just came out last week of hundreds of tax credits, rebates, exemptions, things like that. Are these the kind of things you think we should be closing, some of these?
I do. I think, Governor Martinez has passed 37 tax cuts. And one of the reasons that we can't balance the budget is that because of those tax cuts, we've given away hundreds of millions of dollars in order to create jobs. Well, where are those jobs? We're last or near last in the nation in job creation. So we gave away hundreds of millions of dollars. We got nothing for it. And now we're taking that hundreds of millions of dollars and cutting it from our schools, our courts, higher ed, public safety, healthcare. I don't think that's what the people want.
There are so many tax breaks out there that have been put into law over the years. How hard would it be to get rid of enough of them to fix the budget?
It's very tough. It's kind of tough to get your tax break, but if you're well connected, you know the right folks, you come in with a special interest, you can get your tax break. Once it's in the tax code, nobody ever looks at it again. The tax expenditure report is great, and it lists some of the tax breaks, not all of them. But do lawmakers look at that with a keen eye toward which ones are working and which ones are not? Almost never. And it's because they're surrounded by well-connected lobbyists who are up here to protect their special interest.
Senator Neville, we are trying this week to help regular folks understand this very confusing budget process and how the budget moves through this building. Can you help us understand, where does it start?
Well, the budget process actually started months ago. It started about in May of last year. We, as the LFC, Legislative Finance Committee, we sat down and start meeting with agencies and discussing what the possible revenue outlook looks like. We start a long time before the session starts. We work all through the summer. We have meetings every month, usually about a week a month or so. We get down to the fall, and then we sit down and we try to come up with a draft budget, a preliminary budget that we can work with. That's the legislative version. The executive, the governor, is doing exactly the same thing on her side of the fence. She's talking to her agency heads. She's sitting down with them and she's trying to come up with a plan, how much money they might need for programs, and additional or less or whatever they can do. When we get sometime after the first of the year, we have the governor's proposal, we have the LFC's proposal, and when we start the session, we take those two proposals and we interview all of the agencies and talk about their needs. And they come in and they say, we like the executives better, or we like the legislatures better, and we sit there and we negotiate and we try to come up with a plan that meets in the middle or goes one way or the other, whatever is appropriate. And we choose numbers that will work to fund the state government. We base that on our income projections that, again, are being done by our economists all year long. We get a quarterly update on those projections every quarter, and we use those as we draft the budget. And if it looks like we're going down, then we have to make adjustments, and if we're going up in revenue, we can do some other things.
But about taxes, any discussion of taxes is part of this whole equation, but those things are actually in separate bills.
That's true. We don't necessarily have anything in the budget itself that has any changes in the tax policy. All of our revenue numbers come from existing statute, where we have things like gross receipts, income tax, corporate taxes, all of those various revenue sources. They are already set in statute. So that's what we use to estimate the revenues each year, and that's what we use to build our base budget. If we're going to change that, if we need to increase taxes, then we have to go through some other separate process where we pass some legislation to increase gross receipts or increase income tax, increase corporate tax, whatever it is. We have to do that as a separate measure.
It is pretty complicated. Do you have any advice for people at home who are trying to follow the budget as it goes along and figure out what's happening?
Well, it's difficult to keep up with it as it goes because there's not really any public process. You can come to our meetings; they're boring if you want to do that, but that's the best you can do. Certainly, people call me and talk about it. The counties, the cities, those kind of folks who are interested in the budget process, they talk to us year round and try to keep up with where their individual interests might lie.